Greetings, I'm Herbert Erpaderp, and today I'm going to install some magnetic couplings. The couplings in question are the Hunt Elite couplings from West Hill Wagon Works. Not really knowing what size would be most appropriate, I've gotten myself a starter pack which includes 5 of each close, intermediate, and standard length shanks. These are for your standard NEM, or do you say NEM? I'm obviously not an expert, which goes to show you how easy this is. Anyway, they do also make magnetic couplings for other types of coupling holders, like the ones with springs, or the ones like the Pico wagons have, but they only seem to offer the sampler pack for NEM couplings. Not a problem, that's what I wanted in the first place, and it did seem the best way to try these out. My subject, are some collet coaches from Dapol. Passenger coaches in particular seem like a good candidate for this kind of thing. In my mind, they're rather noticeable when they're not coupled closely, so why not try and change that? I think changing couplings is something that might sometimes seem a little daunting, especially for new folks, but in this case it's really quite easy. You will probably have a little bit more fiddliness with springs, but in this case with NEM pockets we don't have to worry about it. All you have to do is grip the default, old coupling nice and firmly and pull it out of the socket. Here's the magnetic couplings. The difference in their lengths is quite obvious when they're side by side, and the way to tell them apart without putting them next to each other is easy, unless you've got really poor eyesight, I suppose. There's a marking on top of each coupling behind the magnet, C for close, I for intermediate, and S for standard. These markings really serve two purposes. It tells you the length of the coupling and which side is the top. There's no marking on the bottom, so if there's a marking, that's probably the top. Knowing which way is up is important. When they're both oriented the correct way, any one of these couplings will connect with any other. If you do have one of them oriented upside down, it'll repel the other magnets, which I'm sure you will agree isn't very cash money, as the youth say. I'm not a magnet surgeon, so I don't know how this works, just that it does. Let's see how easy these are to install. It's pretty much the reverse of removing the old ones, which is to say, very simple. Make sure the coupling is up the right way, line it up with the NEM pocket, and gently push it in. It will give a little bit of resistance, but you shouldn't have to use too much force. I figured to, hopefully, save myself some time, I would start with the close couplings, and if that works, I wouldn't need to bother with the rest. I'm sure most of us would like the closest couple we can get, and this is really close. It's almost like the real thing. I was a little bit surprised by how they can move and shift around like this. Obviously, this is while they're just on my desk, and their behaviour could be different on the track. I also figured it's probably not a bad idea to try an intermediate coupling on one coach, and a close coupling on the other. That is still a little bit closer than the originals, though not as close as I want. Here's a shot with 2 close couplings compared to the original couplings. It's technically not a huge difference in terms of millimeters, but in N scale, it's massive. It's all well and good to jiggle them about on my desk, but it's probably not the worst idea to try them out on some actual curves. I couldn't tell you exactly what the radius of my curve here is, I didn't lay my track with any precise measurement, but it's somewhere close to 315mm, so it's not an especially tight corner, but it's the tightest I have, and obviously the tighter the radius, the longer shank you'll need. I wasn't really interested in building a tighter curve just to test this. All I really want to know is how they'll work on my railway, and the results seem promising. I didn't have time to set it up properly and use a locomotive, but I ran the close-coupled collet coaches through the curve a few times and there were no derailments, and I was obviously pretty happy with that. They don't look that good cornering, passengers are going to have to jump that gap. It is still a bit of an improvement over the original, and these corners are going to be hidden by tunnels anyway, so at least in my case, it's not really a problem. My main concern was that the buffers might catch on each other, and I suppose there is a chance of that, but it didn't happen while I was testing, so it probably won't happen, at least not until I enclose the tunnel anyway. It was kind of hard to get a good shot of the buffers interacting on the inside of the corner, because obviously there's foam in the way, but it looks to me like they should be fine. I hope. The bogie is really what allows this to work. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't get away with this if I tried it with my 2-axle goods wagons. I didn't have time to test those though, and until this point, I hadn't really been considering converting any of my freight stock to magnetic couplings, though now I kind of am. It's probably not a bad idea to see how these work over points too. This is a more gentle curve, but it is kind of like an S-bend, though there doesn't seem to be much to worry about here. The results were quite satisfactory, so I didn't really feel a need to test the intermediate coupling. I mean, if the close ones work, then the rest of them are going to work perfectly fine. So now I just need to order more of the close couplings. A set of 5 is really good for sampling and testing, but basic math would suggest that it's not quite enough for 8 coaches. And I guess this will give me a chance to pick up more different couplings for the different kinds of mounts. Gotta be honest, I'm not really that keen on trying the springy ones. The carpet monster really likes the taste of springs. Anyway, here's another shot of the close couplings next to regular standard couplings. There is a little bit of play in the carriages, so they won't always sit perfectly against each other unless the train is compressed. And close coupling isn't the only benefit here either. They should eliminate uncoupling issues too. Not that I actually had any uncoupling issues with these collets, but I do have a couple of other pieces of rolling stock that really don't like to behave. So now I'm really tempted to add these to some of my other stock. In particular my B set, and maybe a locomotive. So I guess I'm going to have to do some more experiments and find out how difficult it is to convert the springy couplings. But that's something for future Herbert to worry about. So what do you think? Have you used these couplings yourself? Have you any advice on converting freight stock? Things I should look out for? If you do, or you have any other questions or comments, feel free to put them in the comment section below. Subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of thing, and if you really like what I do, consider supporting on Patreon or Ko-fi. There are links in the description. Take care of yourselves, be excellent to each other, and thanks for watching. Farewell.